Sam and Tucker were walking out of the school as someone pulled up beside them on a very high-tech appearing motorcycle of some sort. The rider had flirted with Sam, calling her babe and asking if she'd like to go for a ride. Though she says she has a boyfriend, and the guy wearing the helmet asked if he's cute, confusing them as they gave him a funny look. The biker took off their helmet, revealing green eyes and white hair, as they smiled, asking how it's going, with both Tucker and Sam getting excited seeing that it was Danny on the bike, and Sam hugged him, glad to see her boyfriend again, and kissed him. Danny then asked if that was a yes, and she playfully punched him in the arm, with him laughing and offering a spare helmet. Tucker says that he's so gotta let him try out that thing, though Danny says that it's got a bit more power than a normal motorcycle, and asks Tucker if he thought he could handle it. They say that they think they could manage, and our half-ghost hero tells him to come on by his place later on, as Sam put on the helmet and climbed onto the back of the bike. Danny tells Tucker sorry, but there's only room for two, and their friend tells him to go on, he'll catch up. They aren't the only one with a new toy, throwing down a folded up disc that extended into a hoverboard, and he stepped onto it. Tucker says that he'll race them to Fenton Works, and Danny says he's on, telling Sam to hold on tight as they then sped off. Tucker takes off on his board, and Danny speeds off with Sam on his bike. Though the board was fast, it could barely keep up with Danny's bike, with them driving onto Fenton Works, with Danny making himself, Sam, and the bike intangible as he drives straight through the building and down into the lab, with Tucker having to step off the board outside and fold it up before going to meet them in the basement. Sam says that bike really is fast, though our half-ghost changed back to human and tells them that that wasn't even its top speed, surprising his friends, as he then asked the two of them how things have been going while he was gone. Tucker told him that Dan was picking up the slack, and surprisingly he wasn't destroying everything in his path as he did so. Sam also said that Vlad was trying to become mayor of Amity Park. This caught Danny off guard, and he'd said he'd have to speak with him about that, but right now he wanted to just hang out with his friends. It's been well over 3 months since he'd seen them, and wanted to know what was new with them besides Tucker's hoverboard, that is. Sam said she had a hoverboard too, and they also sent one for Danny, not that he needed it, but the plumbers were issuing new standard gear. After hanging out with his friends for a couple of hours, they needed to hit home, and so, while they were doing that, Danny went to confront Vlad about what he's up to. Grabbing him when no one was around, he pulled him down to under the city hall building, where the pipes and stuff were, throwing him into one. Vlad then stood up, looking surprised to see Danny again. He then asked if he'd come to wish his old Uncle Vlad good luck, jokingly referring to him as son. Though Danny tells him to save it. He's read what was in the envelope. They might be his father biologically, but he's not his dad. The elder man then changed into his own ghost form, telling him this is just the beginning. When the older half-ghost villain tries to attack Danny, he ends up being blasted through the entirety of the building, with our younger half-ghost hero flying up after them, telling Vlad that his powers are back and better than ever. He wants to be mayor, he'll have to do it the old-fashioned way, without ghost powers, which made Plasmius laugh in response, asking how he'd stop them. Danny then smirked, telling him that if he uses his powers, that he will be arrested under plumber authority, though if he wins the vote fair and square, they can't really do anything about that. Plasmius asks how exactly they'd even be able to take him down alone, and another voice spoke up behind Vlad, asking who said anything about being alone. Plasmius turns to see Dan for the first time, questioning just who they were, though Dan tells him that he already knows who he is, and blasts him down onto the ground, making him bounce like a rock, skipping across the water. Danny telling him nice shot, to which Dan questioned if he thought that they'd just sit around and let their powers get rusty. Turning towards the voters, our main hero sees that Plasmius copies and asks Dan to take them out, while he deals with Plasmius. With a nod, they then fly between the voters and the Vlad copies, with the voters taking notice and starting to freak out, but Dan yells at them all to calm down. He's there to help, before unleashing his ghostly wail, aiming upwards so he didn't break anything. anything, though it did still hurt their ears. Dan's ghostly wail took out the Vlad copies, leaving Dan to deal with Plasmius, and the two were fighting. The older half-ghost told him that he was improving quite a bit from the last time they saw one another, though our hero tells him that it's amazing what you can do with the right training before blasting him into a Vote for Vlad sponsored car. Since the voters were kept from being overshadowed thanks to Dan, the elections were actually honest. Though Vlad still won, it was a much closer election, with Vlad receiving only 2% more votes than the previous mayor. Vlad changed back to human before the voters could see them fighting, and Danny did the same. We later cut to the crowd during Vlad's swearing in. Vlad says that he'd like to take this time to thank a special person in his life and ask Danny to join them up on the podium. He does so, though reluctantly, and Vlad whispered in his ear that he still won, without ghost powers, so he can't arrest them now. He then says to the crowd that he will protect Danny and the children of Amity Park from ghosts. He does not try any of the stuff that he does in the show, however, except for attempting to stage ghost busts, though with both Danny and Dan there, that wasn't happening. Vlad had the old Nasty Burger rebuilt, though it was now McMaster's. Since teenagers weren't allowed inside, Dan went instead, telling Vlad to quit his shit, or he'd reveal everything. And what would Maddie think of him then? Vlad says that he'd reveal their identities too, but our future half-ghost reminds him that he saved the voters, and Danny is a public hero, with and without powers. Try it. The only one who has anything to lose is him. Vlad then asked how they would be able to reveal him if he could be in two places at once as both Masters and Plasmius. Dan then smirks, saying that Maddie knows all about that because he's had to do the same to throw off the media when he first showed up, and she already knew he was half ghost. If he could do it, so could Vlad. Then he'd never get another chance again. Looking at Dan wide-eyed, he then questions again just who the hell they are, and Dan tells him that as far as he is concerned, he's Vlad's worst nightmare before walking out. We later on see Vlad retracting his previous laws after having spoken to some of the teenagers, saying that they were the future and they should have a say in what goes on there, which both was good PR and let him retract stuff without being questioned about it.